Yes, thank you.
Alderman Massey.
So I'd just like to clarify, I think, what Mr. Garofalo meant when he said that there might be 900, 800 units. He was probably contemplating that the park would still be online, and as of right now, that's been withdrawn, but that would have placed 910 apartment units in one particular area of our city. It's not spread out across the city, and that's really what's aggravating to these folks, is that we have such dense development in one area. So I think when he said that, he probably was still talking about that park apartment complex. And there's no guarantee that that won't eventually be built. But even with 600 units, I think that it's still too great a number. Cameron, the thing that bothers me, and I made some notes here, is that, and it's the same thing that bothers me. When we purchased our properties, we purchased them with a vision of raising our families in single-family neighborhoods with other families that shared the same vision. That's why I purchased my property where I did. I moved to Germantown so that I would be around families who wanted that single-family home feel. I just think that the city has betrayed that vision. We came in with smart growth and started making all these changes that no resident could have reasonably foreseen. And as a planner that when residents buy a piece of property, there is a certain agreement with the city based on the zoning ordinances that we won't just pull the rug out from under them and change those zoning ordinances arbitrarily. That's why spot zoning is against the law, right? So in this case, it just feels like the city used the cover of smart growth to basically implement some sort of spot zoning around these neighborhoods, because the reality is that under the old zoning, these types of developments never would have been allowed. And so we've taken away the protection that at one time the city guaranteed our residents. And now they're left with their entire world turned upside down because their vision has been changed. And they should have been allowed to raise their families, retire in those homes, with the understanding that the city was going to honor those agreements that they made with them as they pertain to the zoning for that area. So renaming the zoning smart code and then changing everything and allowing for apartments rather than office, I think is unfair to those residents. And again, I just don't think it was foreseeable for them. And based on that, I would like to make a motion to postpone this vote tonight and have the board vote to allow outside counsel to conduct a formal examination and inquiry into whether or not the smart code and resulting amendments were illegally approved. The citizens of Germantown would like to see a rigorous investigation without speculation.
Alderman Massey, was that
That's my motion.
Okay. The motion is to postpone. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion fails. We're back to discussion. Alderman Barzizza.
Thank you, Mayor. Back to what the school board's got to address and what the school board will have to address, what the school board will have to address later on, and we will have to address as a body later on. One of the things that, and I'm very close with several of the private schools because my grandsons are all in private schools in Memphis because they all reside in Memphis. None of them live out here. And invariably, every one of the schools has had a reduced number of students that go into these schools who are living in Germantown. These kids are coming to Germantown. I met a lady who was living in Bartlett who moved from her two children from St. Anne's in Bartlett out here and spent what would have been tuition money on rehabbing her house, and because of the school situation. The Christian Brothers High School I'm very close with, they are at a dilemma with some of the students that have left. They have, the lower classes are okay, but they lost a lot of juniors and seniors. St. George's in Collierville, as well as the St. George's here in Germantown, has lost student population, and they're all going to Germantown or Collierville schools, and which is a win, I guess, in a way, but it just adds to the dilemma that we will have further down the road. Our new school will be full in no time. We will never get out of the temporary buildings, and so unless we have another bond issue and build another school and try to figure out where we're going to put it and so on and so forth. Apartments is going to complicate the matter. Again, as I said, the people don't want it, not in your backyard, but, where Rocky's living, had they built apartments, would you have bought that house that you're in? I mean, so we got to look at not in your backyard. I can understand not in your backyard. And it's, I've had conversations with Bo Mills in regards to a water tower back a couple of years ago in East Germantown. Nobody wanted it. Nobody wants towers for our cell phone issues out here in their backyard. And I understand, they don't want it in their backyard, but they want to protect their property values. And these folks are our constituents. They're the people who we work for. We don't work for us group. I don't work for anybody here but the people who are watching TV, the citizens of Germantown. So we need to pay homage and listen to these people, because they're not being heard. They're not being listened to. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Any other questions? Staff comments? Or Alderman Massey?
So, Cameron, this is really more for the public's benefit than it is for ours, but some of the issues that I've raised in the past about some of these smart growth developments is the fact that the city held exclusive meetings with developers, and then...
What is your point of order, Alderman?
It's not germane to the discussion.
It's very germane to the discussion.
Alderman Massey, you would need to support that with some type of proof or whatnot. That's hearsay. That's innuendo. That's not something that's based on.
Well, I can get to that if you give me a minute. But let me just say
you're on the clock right now.
Well, that's fine. But it needs to be known that Alderman Owens lobbies for these very apartment complexes throughout
Alderman Massey,
the country.
now
So there needs to be.
You're out of order.
Well, there needs to be a question of whether or not there is some self-interest and motivation when he's bringing these issues to my attention.
Alderman Massey, when our board, and you've done it before yourself, self-discloses whether they have an interest in anything. So
absolutely, I'll be happy to self-disclose. I'll be voting on this because there is no conflict whatsoever, and for you to suggest that is irresponsible and out of line.
I didn't say you had a relationship with these apartments, but you do lobby for other apartment complexes.
I work as a land use planner, sir. You are out of order.
Yes,
Mayor.
you are. Please continue or conclude your comments.
I got to tell you, Mayor, I'm sorry. I'm tired of his accusations to the board on Facebook, social media, and here now concerning the members of the Alderman. Either have some proof or get out. Okay? Get some proof. I'm tired of these accusations. I'm sorry.
Alderman,
I'm sorry. I'm out of order.
Alderman, we asked our residents to have good decorum when they addressed us. Let's have good decorum among each other and to the audience that's here tonight. We've had a motion that's been properly seconded. We've had comments this evening, and we've had 2 rounds each by multiple aldermen. Please call the roll.
No, Mayor, I'm not done with explaining why this is germane to the conversation.
I apologize.
Okay.
Make it quick. You've got about 3 minutes left of your time.
So all of this should be considered when we're making the votes on this. It should have been considered when we determined whether or not we were going to postpone this vote tonight. When we're voting, it's become an issue where we're voting for the benefit of the developers, and the developers were the ones that pushed these amendments and the zoning changes to begin with. I've got the minutes. I can show that. I see Alderman Gibson shaking her head, but I've got the documents to show that. So it's not something that can't be proved. I'll be glad to prove it. We led the board led the public to believe that many of the changes were minor and were intended to only correct grammar errors, and it turns out that
Mayor,
there were
point of order.
substantial changes.
Nothing to do
Alderman
with
Massey, what
discussion.
are you talking about now? I mean, how are you germane to this particular item that's before us this evening?
Well,
You're rambling.
I'm not rambling. This is very germane.
As chair, your remarks are now concluded.
No, you just don't want to hear the remarks.
But let me tell you what, you are out of order as chair of this body. I can declare that. Discussion has occurred. It's been properly motioned and second. Please call the roll.
Alderman Owens?
Yes.
Alderman Yonda?
Yes.
Alderman Barzizza?
No.
Vice Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Alderman Massey?
No.
The motion carries, and just as an aside, there are some fine people who live in the Vineyards apartment next door to the Vineyards homes, and there's some fine people that will live in some apartments next to Somerset that are next door to each other. Let's take a 3-minute break, recess. A lot of us have been here now for going on 3 hours, and we'll reconvene right at 8:20.